And Clerk of the House Sir Robert Rogers, now Lord Lisvane, retired early as clerk, stepping back from this hugely significant position in the House. To some, this was a mystery. To others, it was clearly the result of John Bercow's bullying. Now we've learnt that Sir Robert, or Lord Lisvane as he is now, was one of the key victims cited in yesterday's report. And I can't help noticing, Michael Fabricant, that you pointed this out in the House of Commons in 2014. Let's take a look.
Now, we don't know why he's chosen to retire early, though his working environment behind closed doors has not always been easy, as those in the know have already alluded. And in that respect, despite Sir Robert having studied Anglo-Saxon at Oxford and being told at least at once in front of others to off by you, Mr. Speaker, I think that wouldn't have encouraged him to stay.
I'll ignore the last observation, which suffered from the disadvantage of being wrong.
Wow, well, that was 8 years ago. So why has a formal report taken the best part of a decade to come out, Michael Fabricant?
I think because, as you saw there, Bercow is a serial liar. There were witnesses to the event. Sadly, you didn't have the bleep, you had a gap.
We had a gap. We took out an Anglo-Saxon word from that exchange.
Exactly. And this was just typical. This went on for 10 years. And in my view, it's not just John Bercow who has to answer to this, and it was 2 inquiries, by the way, who found him a serial liar and a serial bullier. And he's showing no remorse, by the way. I mean, he's now still saying, they're all liars, they're all wrong, I was right, I wasn't a bully. It's extraordinary. But the people, I think, who also are very guilty is the House itself. Many people knew what was going on. And every time I raised it, I was bullied by Labour MPs who would shout and jeer and try and shout me down. Maybe because at the time he was supporting the Remainer point of view. I don't know why, but people were defending him. And I remember when I raised that issue in 2014, Margaret Beckett, who had been, or maybe she was at the time, I can't recall, leader of the House, came up to me and said I shouldn't have raised it. It was inappropriate. Well, there are a lot of shamefaced people now, I think, particularly on the Labour side, and 1 or 2 on the Conservative side too, who defended Bercow despite the evil goings-on.
So this was for matters of political expediency, of course. Bercow as being Prince of Parliament, and particularly those Brexit years, that hung Parliament, he could grant as many amendments as he wanted to the opposition, not so many to those on the government benches. Potentially, this is people overlooking his acts for years, really.
Yes, so it wasn't
for political expediency.
Yes, it wasn't just bullying, it was bias. I mean, one of the first things that Lindsay Hoyle did when he became Speaker was to announce that if at any time I decide to take a course of action which is contrary to what the clerks say is the legal thing to do, according to the standing orders of the House, I will have to publish my reasons in the library so that people know what's gone on. And what had happened time and time again, where the clerks were saying to Bercow, look, you can't do this. This is actually out of order, as we say in the House of Commons. It's out of order. It's against the rules. And he would say, I'm doing what I'm doing.
I remember that particularly. I think it was in 2019, a specific incident where Bercow overruled his clerks to promote some Remainer amendment or other. But clearly this has been happening since before Brexit, as the battles with Lord Lisvane there that you were describing in the House of Commons in 2014 went on, forcing someone out of their job, their very, very senior job, before their time was extraordinary.
It was extraordinary, it was morally wrong, and as I say, I think the House of Commons was complicit in this because we did nothing about it. And this can't be allowed to happen again. You know, one of the ways the British Constitution is so good is it's flexible, it moves on, which the US Constitution can't do because it has a written constitution. But on the other hand, it means that there has to be responsibility by those who have power. And Bercow totally ignored that. I think there's something seriously wrong with him in many, many ways.
Wow, well, it's very, very worrying when you have a system that's based on convention. If people just choose to circumvent that convention, there's very little that can be done. Well, what an extraordinary period in our politics.
It is indeed, and I want it to be debated in the House, because I don't want this thing just to pass, because this could happen again, and we must learn by our mistakes. Both sides of the House have to accept some responsibility in not taking action. Though I have to say there were plenty of Conservative MPs who backed me and supported me, not only in the chamber, but on social media, trying to expose him for the liar that he is.